Today on The Loving Truth, I'm giving you a behind-the-scenes look at my signature program, The Decision, which is the only place where I offer direct coaching. You'll hear real questions from members navigating the uncertainty of their relationship, along with my coaching and insights to help them move toward clarity. If you've ever felt stuck, unsure whether to stay or go, these conversations may give you the answers you've been searching for. Let's dive in. I am going to share with you, we're talking about boundaries today. And if you are in the US, this is a holiday weekend, for those of you outside the US that don't know that. And nothing like family get-togethers around the holidays to help us get better at setting good boundaries for ourselves. First, I want to share with you the different types of boundaries, because some of these it was new information for me, and it was good things to think about. So there's physical boundaries, there's emotional boundaries, there's sexual boundaries, there's intellectual boundaries, time boundaries, and material boundaries. So 6 different kinds of boundaries. All right, so physical boundaries. Let's talk about what that is. Physical boundaries can be literally when someone is just like too much in your space, right? Or like walking into your room unannounced, something like that, walking into the bathroom on you unannounced. That can be a physical boundary. But the one that I thought was so helpful is they said, when I was getting examples of this, because I felt like the examples really helped me understand this, you can set physical boundaries that honor you. And you might need this over the next few days. And it can sound something like, I'm really tired. I need a break right now. And you go and you give yourself that break, whether that's a nap, that's a walk outside, that's a bath, that's time alone, whatever it is. That can be a physical boundary. I'm really tired. I just need a break right now. Physical boundary, right? Emotional boundary. We talk about emotional boundaries a lot in this program, don't we? These are the ones that really hit us in our most intimate relationship. So an emotional boundary, setting that would sound something like, when I share my feelings with you and get criticized, it makes me want to withdraw and shut down from you. I can only share with you if you are able to respond respectfully to me. Okay. This is where I see a lot of women in the group struggle, because they'll be in an engagement, and you might call it an argument, you might just call it a discussion, but some kind of engagement with their spouse, and things head south and someone starts yelling or getting disrespectful or whatever. You can step away from that and go, look, I'm absolutely willing to come back and talk to you about this topic. But what I'm not willing to do is be disrespectful to one another. I'm not available for that. That is setting an emotional boundary for yourself. Okay. The other thing related to that, when I share my feelings and then I get criticized by you, it makes me want to shut down. So the only way that I'm able to be open to you is if you're able to respectfully respond. Saying that, as opposed to what most women do, which is they just shut down. They just go quiet. And then they give up a little bit on their marriage. They give up a little bit on their spouse, and they don't tell their spouse. I did this in my first marriage because I didn't know any different. I would just, you clearly don't want to know, or you don't want to support me, or. So I'll just go quiet. I'll just stop sharing. And over time, when you stop sharing, what happens? But more and more and more distance, as opposed to in that moment being able to say something like this, like, look, I'm only going to be able to continue to share with you if you're able to be respectful. Does that sound like something that you could do? Like, this is ninja stuff when you get really good at it, right? As opposed to just shutting down, giving up, and expecting something to magically change, when the only thing that changes is that you get further and further apart. So emotional boundaries are a super big deal in marriage. Okay, sexual boundaries, you got to be comfortable, right? And so sexual boundaries can be something as simple as asking your partner, is this comfortable for you? Or having them ask you, is this comfortable for you? Intellectual boundaries. That's where two people don't necessarily agree on the same thing, right? This is why around the dinner table, we don't talk about politics, or we don't talk about, religion or something like that. So an intellectual boundary can be, I know we disagree on this, but I'm not going to let you belittle me. That can be an intellectual boundary that you can set. It's okay to disagree. We are not all going to agree. We do not all like wall-to-wall carpet or hardwood floors or gray paint or pumpkin pie or whatever. We all are very, very different people, and we've got to allow some space for that. But what you can't be available for or engage in is a bunch of disrespect. Time boundaries. All right. How many of us have said, I can only stay, like, I'll go to the party, but I can only stay an hour. I'm only going to stay an hour. And then the other people there are like, no, stay. We haven't seen you in a long time. All that. And then you end up staying like 3 hours. And then you're kind of hacked off at yourself because you're so tired by the time you got home. So a time boundary is, I can only stay an hour. I will be there, but I can only stay an hour. And then you only stay an hour. So then you set that boundary for yourself and you honor that boundary. And material boundaries is mostly around money. We got to have boundaries around money, right? So let's say you've been giving your adult child, money every time they came and asked you for some, and it was starting to make you mad. It was starting to feel more like an expectation or an obligation as opposed to something that you wanted to do or something that you felt really good about doing. Then you can just say, we're not comfortable giving more money at this time. And then you don't explain it. It's not because we have these other commitments, because we've given you money every other time, because we're starting to feel like it's expected. You don't even have to go into that. You can just say, we're not comfortable giving more money at this time. Period. End of sentence. All right. Those are the types of boundaries. And next thing I want to share with you is just examples of what healthy boundaries looks like. So I want to share with you a story. I had a girls' weekend for my 50th and brought in my nearest and dearest to help celebrate with me. And one of the ladies is just a badass. She's incredible. Her name is Regina, and she is 62. And she says to us, she just sort of dropped it like no big deal. She said, oh, I have a hard no now. I'm really good at saying no. Like, it took her to 62. Now she's like, I have a hard no. And then we were all sort of like, oh, that's fantastic. She goes, but I have a beautiful yes. And I thought, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like, no when it's a no. And I don't have to make it mean anything. And I don't have to explain it. And I don't have to have a lot of residue and carry a bunch of resentment around it. I can just have a no. Mm-mm. But when I say yes, it's like a full, open-hearted, loving, hell yes. So I love that idea. You can have a hard no and you can have a beautiful yes. And knowing that distinction and just checking in with yourself before you say yes or no to something is super helpful. All right. Some other examples of healthy boundaries. Your ability to communicate what you need and how you feel. That's a boundary that you have to be able to set. Remember that boundaries aren't just about pushing people away. It's also about letting people in and letting them know you. Let's assume that no one in your life can read your mind. So if you want to get your needs met, or if you want them to know how you feel, you have to use your words. You have to communicate that to them. And so that's on us to do. Not adjusting your choices to make someone else feel better. And that's the distinction between knowing your yes and knowing your no and owning that answer. But when we really want to say no, but we know that person really wants us to say yes, that's when we don't have healthy boundaries. Not taking responsibility for other people's emotions and not taking responsibility for their actions, right? I always say it's healthy to look at what was my role in the creation of that because I have some control over how I'm showing up and the choices I make. But what's not okay is then taking accountability and responsibility for someone else's actions. So real quick, there's a client who 2 days ago, she's telling me about this issue with her soon-to-be ex. They're separated, but they're not divorced. And she had every right to be mad and upset about what had happened. She went off on him. She let him know. This particular client has a little bit of a temper sometimes when you cross her or you mess with your children, right? And so I think we can all understand that. So she had every right to be upset about it. She did, the words she said and the tone she took was not loving. That's okay. That's going to happen. But she said to me, I know, I hear you in my head. I'm supposed to show up in love. I'm supposed to be loving. Okay. All right, so now I feel like he's sad and it's all because of how I went off on him. She can take responsibility for her showing up in a non-loving fashion because she was mad. All right, it's hard to be loving and pissed off at the same time. It's really hard. So she went down the pissed off route. But what she doesn't have to do is then overtake responsibility for his sadness and his feelings and his choices, frankly, because what he was really upset about were she had brought to light, like, this is why your adult daughter doesn't have a relationship with you. This is why your son now doesn't want to talk to you because you keep doing shit like this. And that made him sad. She's thinking it's her words, when actually her words were just describing his previous choices and the outcomes of those choices. That is not her responsibility, right? So don't overtake responsibility for other people's emotions and other people's actions. Only engage in conversations when they are respectful. Walk away and say, I'm willing to talk about this when you and I can be respectful to one another. That is teaching someone how to engage with you and what you're available for and what you're not, And I know a lot of times we're like, I'm not okay with that. And yet we keep engaging with it. So on some level, it does actually work for us. You are okay with it. If you keep engaging with it and you don't just draw that line and go, no, I'm not willing to have this conversation until you and I can be respectful. Then if your partner wants to talk about it, then they've got to show up differently and they've got to be able to be respectful. I don't think that that's asking too much. I think it's a very loving act for yourself and frankly them to be able to do that. Check them when they're not being respectful and check yourself when you're not being respectful. Having a sense of self that is distinct and separate from your partner. You're allowed to have your own sense of self. You don't have to be like, I am only Mrs. Pope. I am also Sharon Pope. I'm also the coach who helps women. I am also an aunt and a grandmother and a sister and a daughter. Like I'm lots of other things besides just Mrs. Pope. Ability to ask for space when you need time alone or time to think and process. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to just need a break. Communicating discomfort when something is said or your feelings are hurt. And even when someone says that to you, like, hey, when you did that, it hurt my feelings. Like just being willing to receive that. Like, okay, tell me about that. Without getting defensive or telling them they shouldn't feel that way, right? And when it happens to us, we got to let people know. That's setting a boundary. Granting yourself and other people privacy. That's like the equivalent of like when you just walk into your son's room unannounced without knocking or something. Or by the way, when your little kids just walk into the bathroom while you're peeing and want to talk to you, you're allowed to have privacy. That's a boundary. Making your own decisions is a boundary. Honoring others' physical boundaries and communicating your physical boundaries of what you need and what works for you and what doesn't. Now, most of you are not in this situation, but boundaries comes into play when you're dating. Unhealthy boundaries is happening a lot more in the dating world because people they want to know everything about you inside of the first date. Like between your online profile and then the first date, it's like I have to know everything about you to see if I want to even go out on a second date with you. And that tells me that we don't have healthy boundaries with one another. We're allowed to take our time to get to know each other because a total stranger does not need to know the depths of my heart or my life experience inside of the first, 60 minutes of meeting me. They got to earn that. Now, phrases that I want you to be able to grab and have at the ready. So here's some. I want you to at least choose one or two and then practice the heck out of them. This weekend will be a beautiful opportunity for you to practice these boundaries. So you can just say, no, thank you. Don't explain your no. I know you're going to want to explain it. I know it's going to be super hard, but it is also super powerful when you just say, no, thank you. And do it with a smile on your face. They might even wait for like 3 seconds. Like there'll be 3 seconds of awkwardness because they're waiting for your reasoning of why it's a no. When you just live through 3 seconds of awkwardness and keep it rolling. I promise you, you will feel so much stronger in terms of your ability to set boundaries. if you can do that. So when someone tries to push a third piece of pumpkin pie on you and you don't want it, just say no, thank you. My favorite one is, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. That's a great one. If you can use that often enough, you can have it at the ready when you need it. When, your mother-in-law says something snarky or wants to do something that doesn't align with what works for you. Something like that. Like, the reason I want you to practice setting boundaries on family and friends and the grocery store sales clerk or whoever is because the stakes are much lower there. They either don't matter or these people are much more forgiving. And if you can build the muscle of setting boundaries in all those other relationships, then when you really need it, inside your most intimate relationship, when emotions are high because something happened and now you have to set that boundary, but you're not feeling confident in doing it, you won't be able to do it because you haven't built the muscle. So build the muscle with all these other relationships. So phrases, that doesn't work for me. No, thank you, with no explanation. Please don't do that again. That's another one. If you do that again, I'll change the nature of my relationship with you. I had a client where they are separated. Mom and dad are separated. They have a daughter who's 17, who clearly knows how to set boundaries, by the way. Daughter and dad do not have a good relationship, and mom shared some personal health information with dad. And she felt like he had a right to know. Well, her daughter texted her and said, when she found out, and she said to her, if you share more personal information without my permission to dad, I will stop sharing with you. She's 17. Like, she gets to do that. She gets to control what information is available for her dad and what isn't. And it's probably not mom's place to be in the middle of all that. And then the last one is, your actions are making me uncomfortable, right? So let's say, we're sitting around the dinner table, the Thanksgiving dinner table, and someone is like getting all worked up about something that you're kind of like, I wish that they would just shut up. You can just like take them off to the side or whisper in their ear, like, you're making me uncomfortable. These actions that you're doing are making me uncomfortable. That's setting a boundary. So pick one or two and practice it so that then when you need it, it's right there for you.
If today's episode resonated with you and you're ready to find real clarity about your relationship, I'd love for you to take the next step. Apply for a Truth and Clarity session where you'll speak with a member of my team about where you are in your marriage, what's keeping you stuck, and whether my coaching is the right fit for you. You don't have to navigate this alone. Go to clarityformymarriage.com to apply now.